Surrounded by water, Door County's first settlers conveyed themselves and their commerce by boat. Starting in the 1850s, the craft of boat building on the peninsula developed and concentrated into big business that Sturgeon Bay would become known for around the world.
When the European migration really picked up steam in the 1850s, most of the people that were showing up out here, either from the East Coast or from someplace in Europe, were coming from a maritime culture.
If we go back to the very earliest boats that were thrown in the water to move goods and to fish, they were all built by hand. They all required the individual who was building the boat to know all of the necessary skill sets in order to make a chunk of wood float.
They had sawmills, or they had stone quarries, or they had ice houses, but they also possessed the skills to build boats. So they're essentially building ships for their own personal use, and then, sort of the excess is sold off to someone else who is not quite as skilled as they are. And that's what really starts the hub of shipbuilding here in Sturgeon Bay.
By the time that the stone and lumber trades started to kind of evaporate and collapse in on themselves, various yards were capable of actually building vessels that could handle other kinds of cargo. Naturally, this area was able to kind of capitalize on that, and so Sturgeon Bay became a center for commercial shipbuilding.
Sturgeon Bay gained a reputation of having a skilled and innovative workforce, which attracted the attention of the United States Navy.
With World War II came then a sudden influx of military contracts. And so a lot of these yards, which had been struggling before, were able to capitalize on this. And we were pushing ships out, sometimes 5 a day. With that, Sturgeon Bay became a boom town almost overnight.
And the population of Sturgeon Bay essentially doubled. And we had lots of people working in the shipyards. There were close to 2,000 at Latham D. Smith, and smaller numbers. Peterson Builders at one time had around 1,000.
I do know that during World War II, there was sewing machines up here. There was rows of sewing machines up here. There were women making uniforms for the military, and they were building wooden patrol vessels downstairs. So this was a military complex. And as such, and you can see the picture on the wall over there from 1946, they had a catwalk up there with a machine gunner patrolling 24/7 because they were afraid of U-boat incursions into the Great Lakes.
And when we think about, the World War II shipbuilding boom, and you look at the incredible number of ships that were delivered, and you start looking at the dates of launch and delivery, man, this thing all happened in 3 years. I mean, it went in a hurry. And the city of Sturgeon Bay was able to bring in folks from all over the place. I mean, there were, buses running from, hither and yon, and they were trying to come up with ways to house, hundreds of folks that were coming in.
The town grew very, very fast. We had a municipal bus service that ran around town. The housing became a problem, and where the Little League Park is now was a trailer court that was lined with mobile homes. And up where the current high school athletic field is, there were duplex houses built for the war, and it was a very hectic and fast time. I think that time there were like 29 or 30 taverns in town, and Friday was payday every week in the shipyards, and the stores all are open till 9 o'clock, and it was a booming economy. And when the war got over, it suddenly collapsed, and the shipyards then went to search for other work, and some made it and some did not.
In the decades after the war, Sturgeon Bay shipbuilders found themselves in the situation of having to diversify to stay afloat. A A series of closings and consolidations transformed the waterfront from 4 shipyards into 3. One of those to transform itself was Sturgeon Bay Boat Works by changing ownership and its name to Palmer Johnson.
Sturgeon Bay Boat Works, which would become Palmer Johnson, they went a different way. It's like, okay, we see the emergence of the post-war era where all the guys have come back from war and they want the house in the suburbs and they've got more time for recreation.
Then they started experimenting with lightweight aluminum construction, and that is really when they started to get some attention internationally. And it turns out that some Arab king called him up and said, listen, I want you to build an aluminum powerboat for my buddy, the King Juan Carlos of Spain. And that turned out to be the fastest all-aluminum yacht in the world at that time. You know, as soon as that came out, there was kind of an immediate shift in their focus from sailboats to powerboats.
They called themselves the Stradivarius builders of Sturgeon Bay because the guys at Palmer Johnson were artists in wood, in metalwork, whether it was welding, joiner work, anything you imagine. They did it so beautifully well.
Peterson had gotten into the business of high-quality wooden vessels, but they also said, we want to be able to build a vessel out of anything. Anybody can build a steel ship. We want to be the guys that are known that we can build the largest wooden ships, we can build a ship out of fiberglass, and the emergence of aluminum. And so, you know, that diversity for Peterson was the thing that, you know, was their linchpin to success.
Latham D. Smith and Sturgeon Bay Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Company would eventually be merged into one yard, Bay Shipbuilding. In the late 1960s, Bay Ship would take on numerous shipbuilding commissions, but none as grand as 5,000-foot lake boats, the largest ships to ply Great Lakes waters.
Well, in the late 60s, 68, a new lock was built at St. Mary's River, and it would allow a 1,000-foot vessel. So it was much more economical to have a large ship, and there were a series of large ships built in this 70s into 81 to carry mainly iron ore, some coal. There are an annual winter fleet layup which puts millions of dollars into the economy. The vessels that carry these iron ore and bulk cargoes do not run in the winter because of ice. There's anywhere from 14 to 19 ships come into Sturgeon Bay every winter to get repaired, rejuvenated, parts replaced, so that when the shipping season comes, they can run and not be stopped for repairs.
Today, the 150-year heritage of shipbuilding craftsmanship lives on in the numerous marine-related industries in Door County.
We also had multi-generational families who worked in these yards. It was not uncommon for an individual woodwright or a carpenter or a caulker to bring his son into the trade, to learn alongside and continue that tradition forward. And so over the course of a century and a half, you had an incredible buildup of skill, talent, and craftsmanship.
You get people who really do take pride in their work and care about what they're doing. And it attracts people of that mentality. And fortunately, I think there has been and probably continues to be a critical mass of that sort of people in this area. It's the same thing that draws artists here. This is a remarkable place. It truly is.
I would definitely say that shipbuilding has definitely created a unique culture for the area. I believe shipbuilding has made this community intimately tied with the water and in ways that you're not going to see elsewhere.